That's you, Dr. Waterman, playing that rap music? Okay.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Ignite Your Faith. Do me a favor, subscribe our Facebook Live and YouTube. Tell somebody we're online. Jump on with us today. Thank you for coming back. We had some difficulties last week, but I think we're live this week, and that would be consistent. You could jump on and view with us today. Ignite Your Faith. You could jump on and view with us today. Ignite Your Faith. We're going to give a couple more minutes to jump on. For those of you, thank you all for praying for me this week when I was going through my little kidney stone situation. But God is a deliverer. So those of you on YouTube, please text and type in. We can see your comment also for those of you who are watching us on Facebook Live. Likewise. So again, welcome as we go into our topic for today. We have Miss Valerie Watts with us today. Pastor G will be with us a little later. But as we start, we want to make sure we start on time and get out on time. So again, we just want to pray, Father, bless this day, bless us as we continue to move forward. Give us what we need, God, that might help somebody that is in need. Amen. Thank you again. Thank you again. So today, our podcast conversation is going to be about faith and leadership. What should Christians look for in local leaders? And we're going to go through some of the candidates that are here. We're going to ask a couple of questions as we go through and give you some information on what you need to do and what you should look for when it comes down to candidates. So if you have a question that you need to ask, please don't forget to put it in the chat and allow us to comment off of your chat. So again, welcome. Let me know you're there so that we can converse back and forth. So again, welcome to Faith and Leadership. When voting for local leaders, mayors, the city council members, borough presidents, should Christians prioritize political experience, religious devotion, or both? Local leaders or local government shapes our community, our streets, our schools, public safety, social justice. So, what qualities should Christians be looking for in these leaders? In this episode, we want to explore the biblical principle along with the guidelines, and also we want to do the structure of our mayor candidates and what they stand for and what are they proposing to the people. We want to discuss the means of selecting leaders rooted in faith and integrity or offer practical advice that help voters and biblically in their local election. So, the role of local leaders, I guess that should be the first question. So, Ms. Valerie Watts, what is your definition of role of local leaders?
Local leaders, my definition is a local leader should understand what's needed in your community and strive to accomplish what those needs are. They they definitely should be connected to people in the community to understand what those needs are.
Okay. And so we have different local leaders. We have your mayor that's coming up. Our elections are coming up, city council, our borough presidents. Most time when people vote, they don't know the working of these different leadership capacity in the political atmosphere. So I'm just going to give a little definition. The mayor is the chief executive responsible for what we call city wide policies and services, public safety, infrastructure, budgeting. City council members elect representatives who create laws above approved budgets and oversee city departments. Then we got our borough president, and some cities like New York, borough presidents advocate for their borough, advocate for their borough, advice on land use, and connect communities to city agencies. And then we have the controller's office that controls the finances of our city. Then we have the public advocate office that later that they oversight of different what we call different departments over to the city. So these are the five areas of whereby our local leaders will be going through an election process. Uh, so um, um, all these roles influence daily life. Every role that they play, I call five different roles: the mayor, the controller, the public advocate, city council, and borough president. They all they play roles of influencing daily life, community well-being, and the moral climate. They have the power to promote justice to the population and to uphold biblical values. That will be a question because 9 times out of 10 they say sometimes that it's not necessary that the political should be spiritual. What is your take on that, Ms. Watts?
That's interesting because um, should not they should not be spiritual or religious. And my problem with the statement is that many times when folks run for office, they say they're spiritual or religious because that's what people want to hear.
Hmm.
But are they actually that? But are they actually that? And that's the issue. I think we should understand more, understand what they're saying, and if you understand that, then you can make a decision.
Hmm.
Because there's so many religions. Like we spoke about last time, but we was going to look at four mayoral candidates,
Hmm. Hmm.
and one of the candidates is Muslim.
Okay.
So you a Baptist minister,
Hmm.
would you consider that candidate because they're not Christian, even if they have many of the things that you think are necessary to serve the community?
Hmm.
So that's a question to you, Reverend.
So would I look at a candidate that's Muslim? So again, for all those that are out there, we're talking about religious. So when we talk about religion, are we talking about actually Christianity, Jewish, because candidates are Jewish out there too, and then you have some Christian candidates. So
Exactly.
you have Christian, Muslim, and Jewish candidates that are out there. So now the question would be, do people vote their faith, or do people vote generally? They just want a candidate to have some type of spiritual morals.
And see, that to me, that's interesting because if you look at the candidates that are running, for example, Andrew Cuomo, he's running. He is Catholic, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
And he would that be taken in consideration? For me, what I do as a layperson, I look at what their platform, if it's available. And right now with Governor Cuomo, there's a lot of controversy because he did put out a platform, and it was interesting because most people say that it was prepared by GPT,
Hmm.
and they disregarded many of the other candidates attacked it. And for me, um, Chat GPT and other AI devices today is very important to use. Their mistake was that they didn't read or review what they put into Chat GPT to get out this report.
Hmm.
And so many people are tracking it. But I looked at the report, and it's interesting. I'm not upset that there are typos because it happens a lot. Even in my office, we'll write an email, and we at the bottom we say excuse any errors,
Hmm.
grammatical or spelling errors that occur.
Hmm.
When I look at on Governor Cuomo, I'm looking at what can he do for the community, and some appear to be incomplete. And actually, when I read the other three candidates that were assigned to take a look at, their platforms seem to be incomplete as well. So I'm looking at housing, for example, and housing is a big issue for all candidates.
Right.
And if you are spiritual or religious, you should care about your fellow citizen
Hmm.
that live here in New York. And a lot of people are living in shelters because they just cannot afford
Housing.
to live here.
Okay. So if we do that, someone says online, Leslie Marshall says, as Christians, we should uh, pray spiritual candidates preferable Christians get the seat. I wouldn't mind a Muslim. We share similar beliefs. Now, even with that statement here, the question would be, when was the last election of a Muslim? As mayor, there has never been one,
Never, never,
right?
never.
But then we have this big thing that's happening, anti-Semitism that's going on. How is it that even with that, so there's a fight internally, even with the different religions. So
Exactly.
if we can't get past the religious connotation, how do we actually get to the service part? Because if religion is going to play a major part in who gets elected and who does not get elected, then we have to really think about, is religion really important? And so let's even some scriptures that says here, Proverbs 10 and 9 says, whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked path will be found out. Those who for integrity and honesty. So if religion is a part of this integrity and honesty, when does it shift and becomes more political than it does spiritual, especially when there's wars that are going on with religious or spiritual or religion, different religions that are experiencing difficulty with different culture. And where do America actually come into play to deal with the other countries that are having wars, religious wars, and yet we ourselves is getting ready to elect a mayor, uh, candidate, or city council, borough president, and all those candidates. And how does that impact our decision on which candidate should be elected?
The issue that I have is that religion has been weaponized. And what do I mean by that? You mentioned, and that is one way that Zionism and religion is weaponized. I had a personal situation with someone that I have known for 20 years. And I have a magazine, and it's a TV experience. So we discussed what's happening in Gaza to the Palestinians.
Hmm.
And so this friend of mine that I've known for 20 years or better is known. He's a commentator. Because of the history that I read and the history that he read differ. and I didn't agree with him, he called me anti-Semitic.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm talking about. Religion is politicized. And we have to look at what the candidate is presenting. And maybe it's very difficult for me. You can be spiritual, religious, and we had a discussion before atheism. Um, I think we're making a mistake when we just consider religion and we take the politicians' uh, advertisement, for
Mm-hmm.
lack of a better word, that they're Christians, when many of them are not practicing
Mm-hmm.
their Christianity. They're saying that to get our votes.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be able to look at what they're actually saying they will do for us. Will it work? Does it make sense? Is the fundings there or not? And so I don't know where to place religion in this.
Right. So another person online says here, it says it was still like the answer regarding if a candidate is a Muslim or the other campaign is a Christian. I believe that's what it says. Campaign Muslim or other campaigning on other several community issues. Would you vote for them? Meaning that they're Muslim and they have some of the campaign issues. I guess the question would be, what is at that time? I think the first thing is that you want somebody to be connected to God, and now it's like you got to change what is spirituality, what is religion, right? How far do people actually take their religion to the point where, again, in our world, that there is fights that are going on, religious wars that are more religious, and people are now saying that it is a religious war, but it actually becomes a political war. So how do you merge the two, religion and spirituality or political, and then call it a political war or a religious war?
I would like for you to answer that question as a pastor.
Yeah, I just think again, faith, leadership. It all depends on how grounded that person is. That determines the outcome of what that person stands for.
So what do you mean by
So
grounded? That's what.
grounded meaning that in their study relationship with God.
Okay.
And I'm not particular any type of religion. You could be Muslim, you could be Christianity, you could be Jewish. But that groundedness has your belief is, and your belief has to be grounded to. In order for me as a Christian, I can speak from a Christian perspective. From a Christian perspective, um, I have some integrity, who has some moral, who understand justice, because I don't believe that you can actually serve other people with no godly. I believe that you need, from my perspective, I believe that you need a godly relationship in order to serve other people. Because if you don't have one, you're not grounded. It's going to be a selfish, it's going to be about you, it's going to be constantly dealing with what you desire versus what the people desire. I don't think that people can be effective if they don't have no relationship with God. Now, the question that they're asking online is that does it matter if they're Muslim, Jewish, or Christian, as long as they have a relationship? Which candidate, as Denise says, who is best for the job is the better candidate. Now, so I think religion, now we can go into the categories of housing and education and all of that other stuff. But I don't believe that would be really addressed properly if we don't a type of religion connected to who we are. I'm just like that. I don't believe that I could be just an atheist or have no God and really serve people. I also believe that your religion should not get in the way of service because there are many scriptures in the Bible in the Torah that speaks about serving people. And it also speaks about being haughty leaders. It talks about the faults of leaders. And if leaders don't get that information, they won't know when they're at fault, when they make decisions that don't apply to everybody.
See, my issue is when you talk about grounded, and how do you know these people are really grounded? Just because they say they are, just because they say they are believers in whatever religion they are in, how do you determine that?
Hmm.
It's hard to determine that. The only thing that I think that you can do, you hear them, because every politician is going to say they're a believer,
Hmm.
without a doubt, because they feel they cannot be elected if they don't. So, for example, Zohran, he's Muslim. When I look at what he said he's going to do, that's how I determine if he's a good candidate.
Hmm.
For example, he wants to freeze rent. He wants free buses.
Freeze who?
Everybody's rent. And see,
So private homes. So you have a house. He's gonna freeze your. He's gonna tell you that you cannot charge on your rent. He's gonna tell you that you. So he wants the state and the city to have control over your house.
Reverend, that's already happening under stabilization. Do you
In your house,
listen?
private house.
Listen. I'm talking about rent stabilization and rent control. If you have 4 units or more, the city is involved in what you can charge in your private property, although you
Mm.
may already exist. It's
But
there.
but freezing what? So I need to know
I
more
can't tell
on
you.
freezing. When you say I want to freeze the rent
You need
across
to
the
ask.
board,
You need to ask him.
uh,
This is what I'm talking about.
huh.
That people say things.
Mm-hmm.
This is a platform. I did my homework as you gave us
Okay.
assignments, right? And so understands to you that he said he needs to freeze rent. There's how you do that. You asking the
Right.
right question.
Okay.
How do you do that?
Pastor G, you want to jump in?
Man, it's just good to be here, first off. Nah, you got it, Doc. You got it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So you're right to ask the question.
So it
How is
comes
that happening?
back to again. I want to just make a correction. Denise asked if there was a Christian and a Muslim, and Leslie asked if there was two Christians.
That
Who
running.
does the best job running? As we got it again, I said we started off by should politicians be religious, political leaders, and I said we have Christians that are running, we have Jewish that are running, and we have
Mhm.
Muslims that are running. And the question that was posed back is that if they are a Muslim, should they be elected?
Oof. Oof.
And I said something. It shouldn't matter.
My thoughts at the beginning of this. I had to be an ethical framework
Mm.
that guides, directs your value system.
Mm.
I have to understand and know what leads you. What's going to be the motivating framework when you get into those rooms to say how you're making those decisions that you're making. Doc, we may differ a little bit. I don't think that my elected person has to be a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I am a Christian, pastor of a Christian church. I believe that the shared value ethics of the gospel are the dynamics that can transform our world and society. So
Mm-hmm.
I value that. But I also understand and recognize there are folks from we live in a pluralistic society, the people from various backgrounds and contexts who are coming and serving us. My challenge, though, is if you cannot clearly articulate an ethical, moral value system
Mm-hmm.
to be able to lead, I have a problem with that.
But see, Reverend was saying something similar, but less words. He said they need to be grounded.
He's better. He's
Yeah,
more
he
concise,
said
more
they need to be
clear.
grounded. So it's the same thing. And my issue was, how do you really know?
But you don't.
There you go.
You don't know. You
I'm
take
saying.
people. What are they going to say? And say you said this. If you're not living up to what you said, I can hold you accountable.
Exactly.
But if you don't have a framework, you don't have a value system, then I can't hold you accountable to something that you never said that you were responsible to.
Okay, so Nikki says here, I would choose a politician for a what best aligns with the policy that matters to me,
Exactly.
and pray that they have a relationship with God. If elected, that they try their best to carry out the promises of which they ran, regardless of what of their religion. If they are led by God, then they should always try to do the best thing.
And I agree with this book. It's stick, Dr. Robert. You said something last week that made me think and reflect on this deeper. That I can't just vote for somebody who has my same aligned policies. It really does have to be a value system
Mm,
because you can purchase a policy
mm,
anytime. And so if it's going to go to the highest bidder, next week they can come and somebody better than me, has more influence than me, can say something and say, no, I'm going to serve your policy.
mm,
But if you have an ethical, moral framework that we are in agreement with, then I can say, I can pull on that to say, listen, this is not who you say you are.
mm,
You need to do what you said you're supposed to do as opposed to policies. People's policies can change. We've seen that across.
mm,
But whenever things get a little shaky, people change the policies. But it's a differing dynamic in regards to changing their guiding moral value. And I'll put it that way: guiding moral value system that they're being led by. And I thank you for that, Dr. Rob, for making and causing me to reflect on that even more deeply from our conversation last week.
Yeah, so there's different things that people expect from religious leaders. When they want religious leaders have to be T-top spiritual when it comes down to leadership at every capacity, from preaching on a pulpit to feeding the homeless,
Yeah.
to providing shelter, to educating after school programs, to senior programs. And I think all of those are government programs that are ran. How would political leaders who are not or have no spiritual value or no spiritual, not spiritually grounded, uh, really add to the support of what the churches are doing, from our Catholic system to our Jewish system to our Christian system, and all of these federal programs that comes in is based upon people's ideology, how they feel. If it's not working for them, if I'm dealing with, for instance, we all these wars that are happening across our nation. It is dealing with uh, Israel and Palestine. It's dealing with Muslim and Jewish relations, and the Christians are in between all of that. If we can satisfy the general world and everybody's having their opinion, now they're running for elected office. Some of the candidates are against Israel. Some of the candidates are for Israel. So how do we actually say that, from a political perspective, that these people can really lead us when they're conflicted with the world wars that are happening?
I'm very conflicted about politics and religion because throughout history there have been wars in the name of religion. And through my magazine, um, I interviewed Van Hagler. I mentioned his name before because he is a wonderful historian. And he said something to me that made me very upset. And we're going to talk. This is about religion, politics. He stated that the reason a lot of Christians are yelling and screaming at the top of their lungs to what's happening in Palestine because they believe that if allowed to happen, which in Palestine, Christ will come back. That blew me away. It's Christian Zionism. It's in the Bible, and some people believe that. And that is political. It's political that you let people die because your religion says that if this happens, this is evident that Christ is coming back. So that's why, for me as a layperson here, I get very concerned when the two are mixed because people can die because of that. And throughout history, we have had religious wars and they were political.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with this. my reflection with this, and I'm not in disagreement in regards to the dynamics of religion's contribution to, but my solution is not no religion, it's a better faith dynamic.
Oh, of course.
In the sense of this, I would also argue that the majority of wars were waged in regards to resources, whether natural resources
Ain't
or
that
money.
political?
And in the sense of this, I'm not saying we shouldn't have any access to resources. I'm just saying better use and more ethical use of resources. And so that's my reflection with this is to say not no religion and politics. It's a more faithful, better religious expression in regards to politics that is not bullied, commingled, or co-opted by politics, but rather causes the politic to rise to its best self. I think that's when it's engaged with it. And your point, Dr. Rob, I think that I will have a problem with a mayoral candidate or any elected official who does not understand and recognize the value that the faith community adds towards this city.
Mm-hmm.
They really think nobody wants these churches to shut down. None of the folks want these faith places to shut down because if you shut these things down, see what's going to happen in these streets. Shut any of these churches down, close any of these places that have no faith expressions or experiences. I want to argue, and people can disagree, that it's been our faith institutions that have held this city together, even during the most difficult and challenging moments. When folks were finding out in the 80s and leaving New York City, it was our faith communities that stayed here.
Mm-hmm.
When folks were going, and you are a witness of this and the work that you have done, as well as the work your organization has done in regards to the AIDS epidemic, in regards to this, folks were running out, moving everywhere else. The church was staying here and understanding and recognizing we are part of this neighborhood, we are part of this community, we've been serving. What happened during the pandemic? What happened during the pandemic? They didn't run to these other institutions, they ran to the church to be the place that provided the resources, the food, the information concerning testing, vaccination, anything else. They knew where the people were connected, and it still is houses of worship.
So regarding these candidates, how do we determine, how do we discuss their platform in regards to religion?
I might have to be honest with you. I have a problem if they're not showing up in spaces where faith leaders are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a shameless plug, but ACEO, if they have shown up, they have not gathered, they have not participated in any meeting, any understanding of what's taking place, they're not fit to run.
Can you tell our audience who AA?
I'll let Dr. Rob give it.
The African American Clergy Elected Official Organization that meets
I know.
monthly. That we will gather the faith-based gather together. And Pastor G, that's a good point on when political people don't come to faith-based areas where they don't come to really understand faith-based. And I think majority of the part, why I'm saying even the practice of religion becomes so important. Not just say I'm a believer, but the practice of it is very important. One person says that every Christian isn't doing the right thing. They agree. Just as fraternity stay, do they get to know people? How do they know what the people need to service? Is their office very diverse that meets the needs of everybody?
Well, what you want to discover?
That's a key one. I'm sorry, but that's a key one right there. What you just said, Rob. What does the office look like?
Mm-hmm.
Not what does your campaign look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be also clear. Showing up at ACO is the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and this time you're going to get, and what I was going to interject is that during election era, that's when people will show up. Mm-hmm. But what happens when there's no election that's imminent?
Right, and that's the houses of worship. Yeah. The houses of worship are still open, don't close during election, in election, every time they're still open. But I guess the key would be is that what do the office look like? So here it goes now. So we talked about the spiritual aspect of what a leader should be. but political, because we have a lot of people who run with no political experience.
Yeah.
So how does that do justice or injustice to those that they represent?
I'm one of those people who believe that it's not necessarily the experience of being in an elected office, but you've got to be around people.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have an understanding and framework to not only hear, listen, organize, be a little pow by people as well.
Mm-hmm.
You've had to have the experience of going through and being lived experience in life with people to be able to lead people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have no experience in connection, community, it's going to be a problem for you.
And not being an elected official sometimes can be an advantage because you may come to the office
Mm-hmm.
looking at things differently
I,
and trying
I
something
agree.
that nobody has ever tried before.
But if you never served in any capacity, leadership, we're talking about
That's the problem.
leadership.
Well, yeah, but
That the
I didn't
problem
say it
is
was like in
leadership
leadership. I
because
was saying political office.
again you cannot be in political office if you're a dog walker, and a dog walker does not tell me that leadership. Just because you go to a rally, don't tell me you're in leadership.
You could be a dog.
About your leadership capacity.
A dog.
So no, a dog walker is different from an animal servant
Explain.
because they're right. Because a dog walker, guess what? My policies are going to be geared towards
I
animals.
disagree with this. No, not.
I'm saying from my perspective, my
your
policies are going to be with animals.
your business.
I'm getting an animal park, a dog park. I'm getting dog walking stuff. I'm making sure because that's all I know. But I've never had a conscious leadership with people. Leadership for me is so important that because you could be spiritual and never had any leadership.
What
So
I'm saying, Reverend,
go ahead.
you can be both. You can be a dog walker because that's your profession.
Mhm.
But you also can be connected to the community and a leader. So I think we got to be careful how we say these things because again, that's your profession. You could be in the community. You could be organized. You could be part of the PTA.
But you're talking about various keys. I'm talking about people who have actually been elected.
But I'm saying you don't have to be elected.
We're talking about people who have been elected, had no leadership capacity.
But
No, it's not different because I don't think people fully understand the contents of what a leader is.
And it's about my challenge, Laura, is this: served somebody.
That's the it. That's the it right
Because
there.
our elected leaders are not lords over us; they're
Right.
servants
to us.
I agree.
And I don't equate it as the same as a pastor. I don't lord over my people. I serve
Exactly.
my people. I'm in the posture of a servant. And so if you don't have that humility, you don't have that sacrifice, you're doing things not just for the limelight. Majority understanding parts of leadership is doing stuff majority of people will not see
Mm-hmm.
or not even appreciate, but you recognize the sacrifice for the greater good of the people. And so many times if that's not understood and experienced, it's going to be a problem because you're going to be for yourself.
But you can experience that. I'm saying it again. You can be, but never held a political office.
I agree.
And that's what I'm saying.
No, I'm not.
And you can bring something different to the table.
We agree that you don't have to hold an office. We disagree that you need some type of leadership experience.
I just explained leadership experience could be community activism.
But we're talking. I know. That's a different person who's a community activist, right? They know how to rally people. There's a different person who can go be a part of a protester because we have protesters or activists who are part of protesters with no actual leadership capacity. Just because you saw me at a rally, don't make me a leader.
Nobody's saying that. Right. That's not the point here.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
That is my point on what is considered leaders. Because we deal with spiritual, because people do drive-by churches and they're not spiritual. Just because there's a lot of people who go to church and still not spiritual. There's something that they do every day, but it has not affected their life. They have not changed. They just go there. And then there are people who are in the political atmosphere or even leadership who go to community board meetings. Don't make me a leader. Who actually actually go to community meetings or who are part. There's a difference between people who actually lead, who have shown worthiness of leaders. I've seen people get elected being a dog catcher.
I agree with this, but I also want to say, Dr. Rob, this is not anything new.
Mm.
Even for our faith tradition, the see that the folks want the appearance of leadership and not the sacrifice.
Okay, it's the definition of leadership, so we can be on the same page, because that's part of the problem here.
Well,
that's what we need to. What is the definition?
Well, there's some things that the scripture talks about. Let's just go to the Bible.
Give us the other definition as well.
So that's I'll leave that up to you.
He's looking it up now.
Okay. Let me get some. Here it goes.
So while you're grabbing that, Dr. Rob, I'm thinking about even the David Saul dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Saul looked like a leader.
Mm-hmm.
He was head and shoulders taller than everybody else. He came from the right tribe, so he had the right pedigree to be a leader. But he did not have the emotional dexterity and maturity when things happen to actually be the leader.
Understood.
And what does God say about David? Man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart, right? And recognizing that he had a heart after God, that he was there to serve the people, and there to serve God. That the priority was not his own power, position, or posturing, but rather was caring and making sure that he was doing the will of God and also serve the people faithfully.
Understood.
And so characteristics of a leader is integrity, honesty, justice, righteousness, humility, compassion, mercy, have a sense of wisdom and discernment. So
I agree with that.
These are,
I absolutely agree.
And this is the characteristic of a leader.
Agree.
That means that they have to have some type of capacity to have some of these characteristics when they go before. Because if you don't have no honesty, if you have compassion, how can you lead others when you have no sense of that? And I always remind people that there's a difference of compassion with people who deal with animals versus people who deal with people. There's a different compassion. Yeah. I know we want the same because in some houses the dogs don't sleep in the bed. In some houses dogs do sleep in the bed. So there's a different. There are people who fight for if you wear a fur coat, will throw paint on your fur coat. But that don't mean that they have compassion for people. Yeah. It's more for animals. So I always there's this distinct difference from leadership because I can work at the zoo and be over animals. But when I go to communities, I might not be able to deal with humanity and that perspective. So I have better relationships with an animal than they do with humans. And there are some people who are introvert versus extrovert when it comes down to leadership. And you have to know how to balance all of that. You can't be an introvert and stay away from people. No. You're going to have to be somebody who engages with people in order for me to find out what I need. If you come to me and find out what I need, if you never visit me or come to my community or come to my church and then you lead me, you don't know what I need. But then there are other people who have different ideas and ideology of what they consider that they're going to fight for. And there are a lot of leaders who are not fighting for people who are black, not fighting for people who are uneducated, not fighting for the prison system. There are special groups that are fighting for special issues that have nothing to do with the majority of the community.
So with the 4 people that were running for office, are all of them leaders?
I don't know. Tell us about them.
First, give us the definition of leadership. It's going to be similar.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very similar. The office or position of a leader. There is something that leads, such as a primary or terminal shot of a plant. That's what the...
Okay, well, anyway, I agree with the definition already provided with leadership. And looking at these candidates, all of them have, by your definition, well, let's say, they appear to have leadership traits.
Mm-hmm.
Appear.
Well, I'm being careful with my words.
Yeah, that's wise.
I'm being careful.
That's wise.
So, when you take a look at this, they all appear to be uh, have leadership roles. Uh, for example, look at Cuomo. People may disagree that he is a leader that had morals based on what happened in the past, based on the lawsuits that he had that women brought to him against him, based on sending people that were ill back to the places where they were living, where they got COVID. So some people might say, I don't know if he had the morals that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So would you consider him a leader?
Well, all have sinned.
So
Now,
it's
now,
okay.
now,
That's not
now
the
we're dealing
question,
with,
though. I get it.
so I gave you two areas of leadership, spiritual and political.
Yes.
So now we look for those who have a political experience and we look for those who have a sense of spirituality. That means they're grounded. They know when they do wrong. When somebody doesn't know they do wrong, then there's a question mark,
So
right? The
are you
morals and
answering
the
the
values
question?
that come. So the question would be that is a moral leader? Is Zoran a leader? Is Brad Landers a leader? Is Scott Stringer a leader?
Absolutely.
Right? And if you go down the line and look at it, Adrian Adams a leader, right? And all of these have some type of spiritual connection, being Catholic, being Christian, Protestant, being Muslim. All of them have some type of spiritual. Now the question would be, as the person said online, are they capable of leading? Who has the best policies that fit me, right?
I get this, but then I was reflecting on this, and even your definition of leadership is this: we're all leaders.
Okay. That's you
I
answered
agree,
the
they're
question.
all leaders.
Mhm.
But I do have a question. I'm not calling on anybody to say, is there anything folks have done to disqualify themselves from us allowing them to lead us?
So have any
No,
of
no,
these?
no. That's my question. That's my question.
You're gonna answer your own question. I'm not gonna answer that question.
Well,
Because I do think that there are, even though somebody may be in leadership and leading, there are disqualifiers for leadership. I believe I'm always going to be in a framework of redemption.
Okay.
There
That was the
always
next
is
question.
redemption for anybody. As long as there's acknowledgement, rectifying the situation, restitution for it, repayment, whatever that may be. I always believe in redemption. I love a good comeback story. I'm a Christian, so of course I love a comeback story. But I also have to recognize and realize that there's some folks who've done some egregious things to us that disqualifies them from leadership. I'm going to say that. I'm not going to speak on these current candidates. On the current administration of these United States, regards to the president, that there are some things that have disqualified individuals from leadership. Now, I'm note this to say, are there any things that we are observing from those who are mayoral candidates that are disqualifying them from us allowing them to ascend to leadership?
Are you
Because
gonna answer that question?
Because I think it's my
Yeah, but you can answer your question too, right?
my question. But to reflect on it, to say, I think, in my perspective and reflection to your question, your first question, is they're all leaders. Not only all qualified to that person online's question, and then is are there any disqualifiers concerning leadership?
And that is when it comes down to choosing who better fits and who actually category of qualifications and disqualification based upon your experience. See, that comes down to experience. Which one is going to be more important to that person?
Yeah.
Is it spiritual? Is it political? Because every politician is not my pastor. So I'm not expecting the politician to be what the level of my pastor's spirituality, just as well as they don't expect parishioners to be at the same level as the pastors.
Yeah.
So when they come even with that judgment, they look at the parishioners, oh, they can continue to do the things they're doing and they will not get crucified for it. But the leader, which is the pastor, does any of the things that the parishioners do, they will get crucified for it. So now let's move from the religious into the political. So our political leaders are expected to be at a certain level, right? Their experience level is supposed to be there, right? So I'm great for in making room for young people, but I'm not great for making room for young people with no experience, who don't want to be mentored, who don't want to sit under, who don't want to work in anybody's office, who just come out of the field from left field and just be there because somebody voted them in. And then there's always a collective of people. Watch this. In our communities, it's changing all the time. When we are gentrified, when we became gentrified, the gentrifiers voted and put in people to represent us that don't actually fit the mold to represent us, but actually they put them in to represent them. And what I say, when it transition in black communities, it starts with one first. When they remove all of the black leaders in our community, then shift and put semi-blacks in our community, and then the next level, because I'm quoting the next 4 years, the seats that are black are going to be white because of the gentrification that happens within black communities. Because when they put in leaders that does not represent us, and we don't elect leaders that represent us, we're at fault when we choose leaders. Just why somebody said that pastors are not living up to some of the definition of leaders, and I can agree that there is. But here goes a question again with the people. If people are constantly voting in people that don't represent them, or not voting people from a spiritual perspective, not putting a pastor, I don't want the pastor to be on a pedestal in the physical form, but I do want them to have some type of pedestal in a spiritual form, because I know that you can do everything that the congregation do, just as leaders. So we're going to have to really come to an understanding to help people when they go out to vote in this primary in June. They're going to have to make decisions on what suits them. The mayoral candidates, we got 8 candidates that are up there. And across the board, we got Jews, Muslim, Christians, Protestants, Catholics that are running. I don't know if there's any atheists that are running, but we got those. Then you got the borough presidents that are running. And if you don't know the function of the office when you elect, then you're just putting people in place and not knowing why they are there. Then you have the city council levels, who are actually supposed to give you, has supposed to be your voices on the ground in the community. But they're not, because here's some of the rules. The rules is that you don't have to live in the community when you run. You have to live in the community after you get elected. So how can you represent a community that you don't live in? You moved in, and now you try to represent when you don't know them.
There's another issue too. You gotta. I thought that you had to live in the community. I need to double check that. But the ranked choice voting is also an issue, because now people are using that, kind of weaponizing it, and they are telling you who even to give money to and who even to vote for. So it impacts the rate. So we have to understand, the community have to have an understanding of what that is as well.
I stood with the black elected officials as well as the NAACP during ranked choice voting to say I was against ranked choice voting. I don't completely fully understand the strategy behind it, but I know it's not good for black people.
Mm-hmm. And why would you say it's not good?
Because it was never meant. It was never meant for black people. It was meant to gentrify the community that gives other people an opportunity to run in black communities.
And
it was giving you the opportunity, not only because they knew that if you are outsider that runs into the community, and you don't know, you get the funding that you need. That's the matching dollars now coming in. So you got to really look at why matching dollars was there, why ranked choice now is there, because of the capacity of changing and transforming gentrified communities that allow other people who move into communities to break down the barriers, especially in black dominated communities where it's been black electors after other that give other people opportunity to jump in.
It's just another form of colonialism to me, in regards to seeing resources that you want and figuring out a way that you can take it. Literally take it. Dr. Rob, I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I was here in Bed-Stuy yesterday, just walking down the block. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know where I was. Middle of the day, I said, "What is this?" I'm not against anybody. I'm not against any person or any people,
Mm-hmm.
but I am against the people who have been faithfully living in the community being pushed out of the community,
Mm-hmm.
not being able to afford the community. Now, as a result, the areas your mama, your grandmama, your great granddaddy, all of the folks live, you have no longer have access or agency to be able to even have decisions made or opportunities ended up within that particular community. And I see that it's happening rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm far down in East Flatbush, but I believe that there's a plan.
Yeah.
I believe that there's a plan in regards to taking Black Brooklyn's wealth, power, influence. I have a lady in my church, older lady, but guess what? She owns multiple buildings all throughout Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Every older lady, you would never think it, but she got it back when nobody wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And every week she had people scheming, plotting, and planning to take her property.
So
She had to make sure everything in the parts of the facility is up to code,
because
up
they're
to
trying
right,
to take it.
because it'll try to take it. And I know it's happening because I know you've been doing work with it here in Bedford-Stuyvesant, but I'm saying
Indeed.
also deep for that. Also in East Flatbush, this is taking place. This is something we have to be mindful of, and it's about money. It's about dislocation. It's about colonialization in regards to our community.
What I would like to speak about exactly is that in a way, I think the city is involved with the process of making sure that poor people, and I'm going to tell you why in a second, make sure that poor people stay in a certain community like East New York,
Mm-hmm.
the Bronx, and they do it through the voucher system that is.
Is it the city? Is it the people we elect?
I'm going to tell you. Let me tell you. It's part of the city because the city is running, Department of Homeless Services is running, for example, the city FELP system. And it is so constipated. I call it constipated. And I even wrote a song about constipation of it. I'm not kidding you. And that's going to be released. What it is, it's supposed to be helping people who cannot afford to live in certain places.
Mm-hmm.
I, as a real estate broker, was trying to help this individual to get this beautiful house in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hear what I said. A lot of times, it's segregated because in the Bronx. You can get an apartment in East New York or Brownsville, but some of these other nicer places is harder. I had to literally send, and this is not emails back and forth to the city of New York to explain to them that this Black-owned man who is very passionate about helping people get a lift up, to get people out of shelter. He put his property in a trust, and it was a revocable trust. The city has not trained its people to understand what that is. And so what happened is this landlord had to withstand all of this nonsense so they could understand what a revocable trust. All they had to do was go to their department law office. I'm thinking that the city system is deliberately designed to be ineffective. And I noticed this. Let me finish.
I got you.
Let
but
me finish. Adrian, just a second. Adrienne Adams, who's one of the candidates, she said she did the what you call it, the how the city is doing for as far as state of the council. They supposed to be taking this situation, but they're not. The same person, they came back and they said that he's not registered with HPD. He was. His system wasn't integrated. Then he had to go back and do another lease. What I'm saying is these candidates are saying they want to do some of these things, but I believe it has to be by design because some of these things that are happening are easy fix. You don't have to have research for a year to fix and get people into these houses. So ask landlords to open up their doors. Landlords don't even want to bother with this, and I can't blame them. This landlord was a good landlord. Like I said, 80 plus emails.
Right, but let's look at why. Because it's not. You got to remember that every agency is run and is governed by a leader. they don't operate by themselves.
I
That's
explain
the first
why.
thing, right? Here, one, the mayor, the chief executive responsibility for city-wide policies and services, public safety, infrastructure, and budget. City council members, elected representatives to create laws, approve budgets, and oversee city departments. I want you to see the connection.
Oh, I see the
People,
connection.
but I want you to know
Representative.
it's not the people who are doing it, it's the leaders who are leading.
I understand
Because
that.
without the
I
leaders,
said
let me
that.
do the last one. The borough president, and the city borough president advocates for their boroughs, advise on land, right, and connect communities to city agencies. That's what I'm saying again. It's like me being a pastor, right? And I got all of these ministries, right? And I'm allowing all of these ministries to run, and I, the pastor, did not educate them.
I don't think
I
we're
didn't
disagreeing with
educate
each
them.
other.
Oh, I got you. But I want the people to be clear that when we talk about agencies, we're talking about elections. We're talking about people
Yes.
we put in leadership that's over these agencies, over these departments that gives us the outcome that we need. So if I elect somebody who's not concerned about my issues of housing, then therefore that leader will not pay attention to the building department when it comes down to check and balancing the building department
Don't
to make
disagree.
sure that I have.
I don't
But
think we
they
disagree.
will pay attention if there is an organization that is funding them, lobbying them on their behalf to do what they want. That's why I'm going to say there's always somebody who benefits from a neighborhood being broken. And the reality is
It's the real
there are
thing.
those who benefit from neighborhood depreciation as well as other areas appreciation. And many times those are the ones who are funding. And so I'm not disagreeing with you, Dr. Rob, but I'm just saying on the other level, there are other folks who are making decisions based upon the resources they want to take from our community. And so they'll pay a politician this much. They'll put together a PAC for this. They'll do this so that they get elected this way. As a result, they have power and influence in those agencies that you're able to, that you're saying to say, change the variance laws here, change the zoning here, and I'm going to know in advance, so I'm going to be able to make a move and push the folks out.
Guess who's making the money? This is what we're talking about. These big hotels that now house people.
But who gives the power?
What? We're disagreeing. Why you
because I
we
need.
gave the power.
I
We
want people
voted
to
for
walk
them.
away to say that it's the leadership that's in place
I
that
think they
determines
got that.
if I say the borough president. Because here's the problem again: if the borough president have the right to land use, that means we going to the mayor for something that the borough president did. We go to the city council for something that the borough president did. We got to remember that every borough president have land use control, and that means that developers that are developing in your city was okayed by your borough president, right? So we got to make sure that we identify which office. The problem that I'm having with even with one of the members says here, that she says that she last time she voted for candidates, she just voted out of historical perspective, had no idea of why they vote. And that comes down to us making sure that we educate people on the different offices that people hold. So when people are looking for resources, they're not going to the mayor for something that the city council is supposed to do. They're not going to the borough president when the mayor's job is this. So that means education and departments and all that. And here it goes with the public advocate. Their job is to check and balance these things that are happening. And if they're not checking and balancing these things that are happening, and then the controller knows what the budget is going to be spent anyway. So if everybody is ISO and operating ISO, it's not a working plan that is really sufficient enough for the community. And that's why the power is in your vote, your candidates, and making sure you pick the right people for the right office and start putting dog walkers and bikers in places. If we got to put people who got experiences on, for me, got to be some spiritual groundedness and have some political experience. What's your closing, bro?
Doc, you done closed it. Come on, take that offering, brother. Listen, you said exactly what I believe. I just want to also continue to lift that up to say there are those who are putting these people into power and place because they're also benefiting as well. We have to keep an eye. You talk about the who tell how do they get those places in position? Because they're funding folks. They're putting things into place. You've got to watch the resources. The city is not working for a lot of people, but here it's working for some.
And that's where there's no disagreement. It appears to be a disagreement because I think what's happening is that I think we can simplify the process more. I think when there are questions asked, we should answer the question and then say and then amplify it. I think sometimes we move from here, there, other, and it's just convoluted, and it doesn't appear like it's smooth that people can really understand. I think people are aware who are who is responsible for a
I
lot of
disagree.
this.
I don't know.
I haven't
disagree.
finished. I haven't finished. I think they are from this perspective. They look at that it's not working for them, and what I think is that they they might not understand that it's the public advocate, but they go directly sometimes to the mayor's office. And what should happen in the mayor's office is that your concern for whatever it is should be filtered down. Many times that doesn't happen. And unfortunately for us in our communities, we don't scream enough and we don't write enough letters. We don't make the phone calls that we should to demand this.
I agree with you. I believe our voice can be heard, but also I don't think it should have to be that.
It shouldn't, but it is.
And I agree with you. I agree with you. It is. But the reality is because folks are trying to make it. They're just, and I don't want to fault and beat them up too bad because they're just trying to, even if they say the phone call is a bit, because they're just trying to pay kids. They're trying to catch another shift. They're trying to move over here. And so as a result, they have busy lives, and they shouldn't have to fight that hard just to have a decent life within the city. But guess what? This is why you need faith-based institutions. This is why you need the church. What they can't fight, we gonna fight.
Right.
What they can't speak into, we gonna speak into. Rooms and meetings they can attend, we gonna attend. And when we attend it, we're gonna lift our voice and share it. I'm not gonna share the type of meeting we were in, but Dr. Rob and I were in a meeting. He lifted his voice, I lifted my voice. Concerning, because I knew when we were in these rooms, other folks were not necessarily gonna have the privilege to be in the rooms we were in. But we had the opportunity to speak to how we needed to speak to some moments and situations and circumstances because we're hearing it. And just to that point, we're on the ground. We're with the people. We're listening to people. That's leadership. You're not in that room to get something for you.
Some people are scared, and they won't speak. So it's very interesting.
Yes. So once again, we want to thank all of you for joining us here at Ignite Your Faith. So we just want you to remember every Tuesday night we are here. If you have any topics that you want to talk about, please share with us as we continue to empower you for this June election. The reason that we're focusing on this is because we need everybody to fully understand how important it is for you to be a participant in this political era. Yes, there is going to be ranked choice voting, and I know people are going to be confused on which order. But the first thing that you got to do is look at who is going to speak to your needs and who do you believe that's going to act or be active in everything that you do. And so when you begin to vote, look at the characteristics of each person. Look at their political experience. Look at what they've done and what they're offering. What are they proposing for you? If does these things fit you, from housing to education to even food security? If there's something that you need and that you know that this person can deliver to you, that should be the first choice that you make. Even if you don't make a second, third, fourth, or fifth choice, but make sure that you do make that first choice. Vote this June that is coming up. Do not be somebody sit back and complain about it. Don't just go to church, be the church. Don't just say I'm a voter, but be the voter. Make sure that you go out and make sure that you do what you're supposed to do. Because every Christian, every Muslim, every Jewish, every person that considers themselves in any type of humanity should be out there voting for the candidate of their choice. My name is Pastor Rob. Thank you for joining Faith and Leadership and Ignite Your Faith. God bless you.